Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Panda's Platinum Chase podcast. This is a podcast about video games, trophy hunting, and everything in between. I am your host, Gilbert.
I'm Kate.
I'm Joe.
I'm Tyler.
And today we are going to be talking about some of the big E3 announcements that we missed, some that we saw, and we're also going to talk about what we're currently playing and what games are on our radar for this coming week. So for our first topic, we're going to be looking at the news for the week of June 17th. There isn't really a huge amount of news that came out on the PlayStation side, so we're just going to do a reminder for the PlayStation Plus games for June 2021. For the PS5 game, that's going to be Operation Tango, and Virtua Fighter 5 and Star Wars Squadrons are both for the PlayStation 4. So the big event that happened this week was E3. So obviously we didn't have an E3 last year because of COVID. So this was the big transition to E3 being completely digital. I know some of the big standouts were Death Stranding. Kate, did you have any opinions about Death Stranding or anything you wanted to cover about it?
No, I'm interested to see what a director's cut though from Hideo Kojima looks like. We never got to see his fully realized vision for Metal Gear Solid 5 because he was obviously let go from the project. And based on the story of Death Stranding, the setting, the trailer didn't really give anything away as to what to expect from this. If there's going to be additional content, if there's going to be another 30 hours of cutscenes with Hideo Kojima, that is totally possible. So I'm just really interested to see, how bananas does this get? What gets added to it? And unfortunately, we don't have any information about that.
Well, obviously that was a Metal Gear reference. I think Joe pulled it out of nowhere that it was, Metal Gear 2 with the oranges, but...
Yeah, it was the first cardboard box you get during the Snake segment of Metal Gear 2 is for, orange brand oranges. And in the Death Stranding teaser, he dumps out a box of oranges and jumps in it.
Yeah, so it was a subtle, not so subtle kind of jab at, I guess, Metal Gear.
Is it a jab, though? I can't tell if that is him just giving a little wink. Because it doesn't seem like it's, I guess maybe it's insulting because he dumps the oranges on the ground, and maybe that's to Kojima that is like a huge insult. I just took it as like a fun little nod to Metal Gear, but again, I do not have his genius, so I'm not working 30 steps ahead, so I'm not sure what it's actually meant to mean.
I feel like that's probably more likely because he references Metal Gear games in Metal Gear games, so he has fun with it and doesn't really have any set.
Yeah, he likes to Russian doll it a lot, where there's a plot within a plot within a reference within a reference.
Kojimaception.
Kojimaception is a great way to put it. That is definitely what his games are like, for sure.
Yeah.
I could see it being portrayed as a bit of a jab because, Sam jumps in the box as if he were trying to pack himself in the box instead of using it in a stealthy way, the way Snake would. So, to the average man, it'd be like, oh, what a stupid idea, hiding in a cardboard box. But at the same time, it's also, hey, remember that time Snake hid in a cardboard box and saved the world?
I guess the reason I took it as a jab is if Metal Gear and Kojima, Konami didn't separate amicably, if you will, then any kind of reference specifically to their properties, I guess, might kind of be like a, hey, you see what I'm doing kind of a thing. But, Kate does bring up a good point about specifically just look what I can do, kind of a thing. And I don't know how much Death Stranding have you guys played?
None.
None.
I've played about 40 hours, so I'm midway through like chapter 3.
Accurate.
I've seen the ending. I've played for a fair bit. It is definitely a game that I need to finish, but his games are always so dense, and really, you could put it down and come back a year later, and you will have understood the plot as much as if you played it straight through. And I don't mean that actually as a negative. I think it's just, we talk about how games very often are cliche, and you can see the story beats kind of coming from a mile away. You never get that in his games. You're always just like, wait, what is happening? We're doing what now? Yeah. Okay. It's exciting. It's you're never going to be bored.
That's true. So the reason I was asking, because Kate mentioned new content, because I know people like to really deep dive on some of these trailers, right? Even like the 30-second snippets from Kojima. The one thing is, though, in Death Stranding, there wasn't really a facility like that you could kind of just like sneak into. Like anywhere you walked in, you walk in the front door and you go to a kiosk, and that's it. So maybe
you're a courier, you're not an assassin.
Well, you never know.
Maybe that's the twist. Maybe the courier becomes the assassin in the director's cut.
You find out the whole time his name wasn't Sam Porter Bridges, it was Sam Assassin Bridges.
Or Solid Sam Bridges.
Yeah. So anyways, the next big game would be Far Cry 6, which I know was kind of a known entity beforehand. Far Cry 6, I know the 5th one wasn't super well received, but Joe, did you have any takes on Far Cry 6?
Honestly, I really didn't have any expectations going in because I've played every Far Cry since 2, and they all felt very similar. There were a few, like the big change in playstyles from 2 to 3 was neat, but then everything from that felt the same. And while this one does look very similar, just, story beat wise, you're an outsider in a nation that's going through some sort of civil strife and you're there to end it. I'm really excited for this one just because of what they added to it. I really like how they're making it more... There seems to be a lot of emphasis on choice. Because, like, the trailer I watched, it showed you could go in guns blazing. You could take the old trails from the previous revolution. So there are multiple ways to tackle every situation. And you could go in guns blazing with your brand new gun. Or you could just grab a motorcycle engine and make a Gatling gun out of it.
Yeah, they're definitely a little crazy. Tyler, I know you haven't really played Far Cry too much. Does anything that Joe said sound super intriguing to you?
I mean, I liked the trailer that I saw. And I mean, if the overall concept of the games is kind of like overthrowing dictators and tyrants and stuff, like, I'm always down for that. But yeah, I mean, I like choice and stuff. I have an option.
Would you be more intrigued if I told you there is a gun that shoots CDs and also plays the song on the CD while you shoot it?
Yeah.
I believe this is kind of the first Far Cry, though, that has choice. Now, I haven't played every single one, of course, but that's new to 6, right?
From what I understand, yes, because all the ones I've played, they've had like the illusion of choice, but at the end of the day, you get the same result no matter what you do. Whereas this one really does seem heavily dependent on what you do and how you play, at least from the trailer I saw. Who knows how much of that's going to stick when it comes out?
Yeah.
I just like this idea that we're going back to kind of the tropical locale of the Far Cry 3, but without the kind of problematic undertones of a white person coming in and killing all the people of color in an island nation. And I like this idea that it seems like from the trailers, your protagonist is somebody who is a former from the military. So it seems like you were part of the allowing this dictator to kind of take power, and now you're on this guerrilla side. So that's an interesting story that's there, and I hope they kind of unpack that. And now we get into the choice, right? Do you redeem yourself? Do you help take this person down? Or do you kind of just go with the flow and you allow it to happen? So it'll be interesting to see. And of course, the choice starts with the fact that you get to choose if your protagonist is either male or female. So I think it's one of the few Far Cry games where you actually can play as a woman, which of course is the character in the trailer.
Yeah, I think Far Cry 5 had that choice, but it's been so long. I know, of course, Assassin's Creed, but Ubi has had some interesting choices with that, right? Did you want to touch on that, Kate?
Yeah, it's just, more than any other kind of game studio, they're infamous for having this. Well, if we have a female protagonist, we'll have it be a choice, whether you can choose as being male or female. And you talked about how it's an illusion of choice. It's very similar to that. There's almost always in that case, the canon character is a female. We saw that in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. We saw that in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. But they refuse to commit to having a solely female protagonist because they think that will not sell. And of course, this is a game developer that's infamous for having a huge culture of sexual harassment. I've had to settle several lawsuits related to that, and it's just it's one of those things where it's great that we get to play as a female protagonist, but it always feels like Ubisoft is doing it kicking and screaming. So it kind of takes away some of the enjoyment of it, of just getting to play a strong female character. And also it's always a little insulting, this idea that like men don't want to play as female characters when Tomb Raider is one of the best-selling video game IPs of all time. So, you win some, you lose some. Like, not great, Ubisoft. You get no credit for that.
Another slap in the face I just kind of thought of with Assassin's Creed, especially Odyssey and Valhalla, is, in Odyssey you have the male and female characters who have different names, so they obviously had to record every line where their name is spoken twice. And then they realized that's really expensive, so how did they fix that in Valhalla? Give them both the same name. Are you a guy? Are you a girl? It don't matter. You're Ivor.
Which is, I found this out, a female Norse name. So it always feels like that the creative team behind the game has a vision of a female protagonist, and then the powers that be, the executives come in and say, well, no, we got to have at least one character with some testicles, or people won't buy the game. And it does feel like it's always something that's kind of shoehorned at the last minute. And there's nothing worse in a game than something that reeks of decision by committee. It takes the fun out. It takes you right out of the world and the enjoyment of the world that has been created for you.
Since you brought up Valhalla, maybe you can clear something up for me, because I don't know if I missed it. So when you're choosing your gender, there are three options. Female for the canon Ivor, male for the male Ivor, of course, and then there's I forget the exact wording, but I think it's like let the animus choose. What is the
heavy spoilers for anyone who's listening, but the explanation, and again, this is spoilers, is that Ivor, who's a female Norse Viking, is actually the reincarnation of Odin, the Isu that is Odin. Because, of course, again, Assassin's Creed lore is wonderful bananas. It could have been written by Kojima, for all we know, where the ancient Isu race are what the actual gods were. And so that's the concept of this idea with the reincarnation of the Isu, that they have both kind of female and male DNA strands that they plug into. And so the Animus is trying to sort it out as you play Layla, who is playing as Ivor, who is a reincarnated Isu that Layla is fighting in the future. Again, don't think about it too hard. Just enjoy the game.
Okay, I thought I missed an explanation, so I'll go back into it and check it out. I mean, it sounds like it makes as much sense as some of the Elden Ring stories, which I know is one of the other big news clips. Elden Ring, people had no idea that was going to show up at E3, right? And I know a couple of the streams that I was watching, they were like, wait a second, is this? It's not, right? It is? Oh my god. I'm not a big Souls person. I'm terrible at them. Joe, you seem to like them for some reason.
Glutton for punishment.
So what did you think of the trailer?
Well, yes, I do enjoy pain. Honestly, watching the Elden Ring trailer, I'm not expecting entirely too much out of it. I'm expecting it to be a lot more of the same, just based on the looks. Because while it does look amazing with all of the new areas and the enemy design, as I'm watching it, I'm imagining I'm playing it myself, and it just feels like I'm playing any other FromSoft game, with the only real difference is that you have a horse.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I wanted to love it. When everyone said, oh my god, Elden Ring's out, it's this wonderful game, George R. R. Martin was a part of it, like it's gonna blow your socks off. And I put it on the trailer, and immediately I said, oh, okay, so it's Elden Ring, it's about this magical ring, there's this giant glowy magical tree, and I'm thinking, this is right from Lord of the Rings. This is Valinor, this is the One Ring, your character looks like he's from Rohan via Skyrim. The enemies look like you could just pluck them from any of the Soulsborne games. And so it kind of took a lot of that energy that I was feeling kind of going into this game. I think it's still going to be fun. I'm sure the boss fights will be epic. It's going to look gorgeous. I'm going to enjoy playing it. But it's not going to say anything new. It's not going to tread any new ground. It's not going to be revolutionary in the way, say, like Game of Thrones was for kind of mature fantasy. So I was hoping for something that felt like a new take on. And the closest thing we got to that was the concept of horse gameplay. So I'm really interested to see when they get to the gameplay trailers what that looks like, because I think that's the most unique aspect so far of this game.
Yeah, I know you have to be a certain kind of person to like those Souls games, but from what my little experience, they all kind of seem the same.
Well, I mean, the cool thing about the Souls games is they are, and Bloodborne, they are, obviously, some of the hardest challenges in modern gaming. They're really frustrating to play. Until you kind of level up and really understand the mechanics. It's a steep learning curve. But they have some really rich lore and mythology that they have kind of built into these games that is a little bit unique. It isn't something we have seen before. And I didn't see that in Elden Ring. It's kind of like, it feels like it's kind of following in the same footsteps. But it will be, I suspect it will be one of those games that you'll be proud to platinum it. It'll be really shiny on your trophy card to say, hey, I did it.
Yeah, I am hoping they put a bit more work into the lore of Elden Ring just because they have the massive amount of manpower that is George R.R. Martin. Because as amazing as some of the lore is in the Soulsborne games, if you read all the item descriptions and follow the little breadcrumbs, there are also some like, here is Big Hat Logan. He is called that because his name is Logan and he wears a big hat. And it's like you have all this possibility to have this great sorcerer who hides away from the world, but no,
Yeah.
he just has a big hat.
It is funny how we are now 70, 80 years removed from Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, and we're all just in the sandbox he has created. We're just playing in that sandbox. You know, whether it's this game or Skyrim or you know, all of the Elder Scrolls games or the Dragon Age games, they're all kind of very, very similar. So I hope they hope there's a surprise or a twist or something to break out of that.
I mean, to be fair, the man invented a genre and really got it in one. Because, I mean, before him, there was no concept of high fantasy, and he did
It's true.
everything.
But in the same way that Star Wars and Star Trek have, you know, it's just an example, share some kind of starting points, they go in vastly different directions. And I want to see that a little more in the kind of high fantasy area. It's always elves commune with nature and use bows, and dwarves love gold, and there's just, you know, let's branch out a little more, and that's a way that like is used that George R. R. Martin, you know, did with with his previous with, you know, Song of Ice and Fire. So I'm hoping we get there eventually.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'll probably try this one again, to be completely honest. Tyler, do you like the Souls games at all?
I haven't played them, but I've played some games that people say they're like slightly reminiscent of. I mean, not definitely as hard, but in the same
Yeah.
vein.
Do you like a good fantasy
like
game?
Oh yeah.
So you see Elden Ring probably, and you're like, oh my god, I can ride on a horse, and I'll be the champion, and that probably is really exciting.
I mean, the trailer I saw was pretty unexplanatory. Is that a word? I don't know. But it was just a guy like hammering on the ring, and like it was very minimal, and like really gave nothing. Like I didn't see a horse in it, so that's all news to me right now. But
no, they really didn't tell anyone or show anything before E3. It was just kind of like a boom. The other thing though that they didn't tell anyone about would be the Guardians of the Galaxy game though. Joe, somehow you must have some kind of insider information because you did bring this up before. So
my insider information is an infographic from some wiki deep dive I did one day.
Yeah. So I don't. I thought it looked cool. Of course, you know, Square is doing the game. They just put out the Avengers game less than a year ago. I didn't hate the Avengers game, but there's some end game problems, of course, a huge grind fest. I'm really hoping they don't make the same mistakes. I am looking forward to possibly a Marvel gaming universe. So I don't. What did you guys think?
I'm just excited
The
for
Guardians of the Galaxy trailer.
Sorry, go.
oh, okay. I mean, I liked it. It just felt more like a movie trailer to me though than a game trailer. Like it was just a lot of clips of dialogues and stuff.
First reveal.
Which would be cool if they make it as like a cinema type game, because they definitely seem to stay true to all of the humor and the um, interaction and relationships all the different members have with each other. So I don't,
Yeah, yeah, the movies definitely kind of lay in a certain
yeah.
attitude.
I just wish there was. I mean, I'm sure there will be a gameplay trailer or something at some point, but the only thing we saw was, Star-Lord like sliding underneath some creature jumping and shooting at it. Like that was the only actual action. Well, I mean, there was a few other things, I guess, but it was mostly dialogue.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I
So
think
Kate,
the
what
highest
did you
praise I
think?
give it is it looks like James Gunn directed it, right? It looks like it could, like Tyler says, it could be a movie. And it looks like it's going to be fun. And how exciting is it to get to play a space game that isn't dystopian in tone, that is about, just going on fun space adventures. And I'm probably most excited for this game out of all the games that we have talked about, because it seems like this is going to be a game that I'm going to enjoy from start to finish, that I'll enjoy the side missions and the end game content. And it's just going to be enjoyable all throughout. So I'm very excited to see this. I think it's going to look gorgeous on the PlayStation 5.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sure even we'll enjoy the side dialogue between, the characters, right? So Joe, what were your thoughts on Guardians?
Like Kate said, I really do think the best praise you can give it is that it looks like it was made by James Gunn. Like, I still think the best part of the trailer is as soon as it starts and you're introduced, it immediately starts playing Bonnie Tyler's I Need a Hero. And I still have it stuck in my head. And I watched the trailer like 3 days ago.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to the gameplay, not only the combat, because I've been playing a lot of Final Fantasy VII Remake recently, and I think Square really nailed it with that, so I'm hoping we get more of that where every character plays differently and you can hot swap between them in combat, so as Star-Lord is shooting something out of the sky, Groot can be ready to like smash it into the ground or something like that. And also just seeing the characters interact with each other in the field, like where the scene in the trailer where there's that big divide and they're like, how do we get across? And then Star-Lord says, hey, Drax, throw him. And he just grabs Rocket and chucks him across the ravine before he can react.
We don't know who are all of the Guardians going to be playable characters. I mean, the closest I've gotten to play is any of the Guardians has been like the Lego Marvel games. So I'm really excited. Like, do you get to play as Gamora and as Drax, as Rocket, and particularly if you get to play as the different Guardians, how do they differentiate their combat, right? You could see, like, maybe Drax is particularly strong, Gamora is, particularly agile, but I really want to see if they have you play as them, how do they make it feel like truly different as playing as the character, and not just as they kind of reskinned you as you kind of switch around with them. We don't even know if you only have to get to choose one at the beginning and that's who you play throughout, or if you get to choose from missions. I'm really excited about this. I think you could go in so many different directions.
And it wouldn't be bad if
I'm gonna make a guess.
I mean, go ahead, Tyler. Brings up an interesting idea. If they did like a Borderlands type thing, where it's you basically play the whole game as a different person, but things change also because of that.
Yeah, like they become character classes. I'm just hearing a good opportunity to do some co-op gameplay, and I really wish more games would have co-op campaigns. Awesome, right? You get to hang out with your friends as the Guardians of the Galaxy playing together. I don't think they've said that it's going to be co-op, so it probably not, but that would be fantastic. I mean, it's already set up. They already have 6 of them? It's already ready.
Yeah.
Do a co-op campaign. Don't do the let's slap a multiplayer in at the end that nobody wants.
Oh no. I'm guessing you're going to be able to hot swap. that's gonna be my prediction. Of course, Rocket is small. I'm just gonna call it now. There's gonna be like a small little fan vent that only Rocket can get through, right? Or you have to use Groot to build a ladder up to something. Or the classic two towers that Gamora's gonna have to
There's
zigzag
always the
up.
female character that has
Right.
like the double jump.
So
and I mean, when you have an
there's
opportunity
Hawkeye.
to swap to a smaller character, you're always like, all right, where's a small door they're gonna have to go through so they can unlock it from the other side?
Yeah.
Yes, but
And then switch back to someone else.
I'm hoping for some more varied puzzles
Yeah.
than that. I hope that that's not the extent of it, but I'm so excited. You cannot dampen my enthusiasm for this game.
Yeah, I think even if it is,
Yeah.
Another thing I'm interested to see.
I think even if it is more of a linear
Go ahead.
story or anything, it'll still be a lot of fun because it's Guardians and
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One thing I'm interested to see is how far they go into the comics side of it. Because, in the movies, we have the core group of Guardians with Star-Lord, Rocket, Groot, Gamora, Drax, and Mantis. And we've seen all of them in the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
But there have been a lot more members to the Guardians of the Galaxy. Because Yondu was there. I'm pretty sure Adam Warlock was a Guardian of the Galaxy at one point. So there are so many characters they could possibly bring in, either as playable characters or just in passing as you're on a planet, you end up doing a side mission where you're fighting with Moondragon. There are so many characters they could bring in because they don't have to worry about who owns the rights to them because the gaming rights and the movie rights are two entirely different things.
It's just going to be a character
Right.
we're going to need in a movie, and we better, get an A-list for it, or this can just be a kind of a throwaway. And that was the best part about the Spider-Man games, right? Is they just kind of went into figuring out, all right, what are some really not as well-known enemies we can kind of put in here. You never see Black Cat, for example, in the movies, and she's prominent in the video games. So I love this idea that Marvel is kind of building this cinematic gaming universe and kind of what that can mean, because there's so many rich stories to tell that haven't been told.
Yeah. So, throwing out some more predictions. If we had to guess what the trophy list, because obviously we all love to stack up those platinums. Eventually we get to it. If we had to guess, what do you guys think Far Cry 6 will be like? Elden Ring, Guardians, everything we just talked about. What do you think? Kate,
I think I'm going to have the most fun platinum
one of those,
Guardians.
what do you think it will look like?
Because I think it's it's going to have a little bit of challenge. It's going to it probably will be collect some things, do some miscellaneous stuff, go on all these missions. It's going to be more of a game of 100% the game. Which, if it's as exciting as I'm hoping it is, I think I'll love to do that. But I think the game that's going to challenge us is probably going to be Elden Ring. And I think Far Cry 6 will just be, how many ways can you kill people with ridiculous weapons? And it wouldn't be a Far Cry game if that did not include some fun, wacky trophies like that. Oh, you have to unlock the radio towers. I mean,
And to unlock
Ubisoft
all the
games
radio
need
towers.
to show you their engine.
Oh, yeah.
They need you to do that 360 around a high point so you can get your money's worth.
Yeah,
Joe?
and then there's also going to be one small collectible that is going to be 800 of strewn across the map that you need to collect 65 of to get the trophy and never touch another one again. Yeah, go get those feathers. Go get those rocks.
Joe, what are your thoughts for Elden Ring?
I feel like that list is going to be very similar to most of the Soulsborne games, where you're going to have your usual beat every boss, reach these certain story beats, fully upgrade a weapon. There's probably going to be something, exploration related because it looks more open world. I wouldn't be surprised if they added some sort of like mechanic where you can bond with your horse since it's going to be a companion. So like, reach maximum affinity with your horse by just petting it when you're not riding into battle. Yeah, so that's probably going to be pretty basic. And Far Cry, I really do think it's just going to be more of the same. Probably something along the lines of similar to Days Gone with the kill X amount of enemies with crafted weapons, since that seems to be a big part. So there's probably going to be make a certain amount of weapons, defeat a certain amount of enemies with them, maybe use a specific one. I really hope there's something related to the CD gun. I'm going to keep talking about that because that just looks like so much fun.
Right.
I'm not going to lie, I will attempt to do as much of my run with just that as I can.
Yeah. And Tyler, what are your thoughts? If you had to guess, I know you're not a Souls person. You haven't done
all
Far
your
Cry,
predictions
but
sound pretty believable to me. And just based on other games I've played, I can kind of imagine the types of trophies they'd probably have. Also knowing what kinds of games those ones are. So, shooters usually have a couple of like the same trophies in every shooter.
classic.
Yeah, at this point,
Yeah.
I'm more shocked when a shooter doesn't do 100 headshots than when it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess speaking of Far Cry, some of us are still working on Far Cry 2.
Oh my god.
Which I'm currently up to 75 hours on the multiplayer.
Oh, you poor bastard.
And I only have, I'm guessing around 3,000 headshots left. Probably close to 5,000 kills and probably about 3,000 executions. So I'm still working on Far Cry.
And of course, because Far Cry 2 is such a fun game, none of those carry over. So like a headshot doesn't count as a kill, and an execution doesn't count as a kill, so they all have to be unique things.
You do go through a really fun trajectory. Like first you love the game, and you're like, hey, I'm gonna platinum this game. I enjoyed playing it. And you start the platinum process. And then you're like, I don't like this game so much anymore. And then you get about 50 hours in, and you're like, I hate this game. And then something strange happens where you're like, you start to appreciate the game again. And you're like, actually, this is pretty great. And then you get so good at the game because you now know this map forwards and backwards. You know the multiplayer mechanics. Just in your sleep, you can do headshots. And then you're like, this game's awesome. And then you finish the platinum, and you're like, I am never playing this game ever again.
Yeah. I know.
Kate, you just described Stockholm Syndrome.
I think you guys might be there.
I know. We are. But the platinum though is last time I checked.
Oh, I believe it. I'm never gonna do it.
8%.
I applaud the two of you, but I don't have that kind of fortitude.
You should. And then the other big scramble, because why not add more pressure on top of trophy hunting, is the PlayStation Vita. Even though the stores are no longer shutting down, the Vita Messages app are shutting down. So any game that, there's a trophy for, like, invite a friend and beat them, or play a co-op campaign, and that requires inviting them through a message, that's going to be unattainable. So, of course, my partner in Far Cry 2 is like, hey, so I just bought all these games. Do you want to do them? And it's like, but we still have, 20 more hours in Far Cry. Luckily, those were super easy. Some of them were like Fruit Ninja, classic, from when the iPhone first became popular. So yeah, so that's pretty much all I've been doing, with the occasional sprinkle of Yakuza. There, I said it one time in the episode. I'm not going to touch it again. Um, Joe, what are you currently working on?
Oh, I am. My big one at the moment is Portal Knights, because that was another game we got for free on PlayStation Plus like 3 years ago. I booted it up, got the obligatory start the game trophy, and then said, I'm never playing this again. But then one of my friends did all of the hard trophies, and I realized I could hop into his world and get 80% of them. So I did that, and now I just. Yeah, at this point, all I have left is one random event that I need to happen. So I've just been booting up my game, going to the world. If it's not there, close it down, move my clock forward 2 hours. I've just been doing that until the event shows up.
Is that why your PS5 is still on?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
Yes, because I was in the middle of doing that, and then I realized we had to start recording.
And I also have that same problem. I wasn't as conscious a couple of years ago about playing a PlayStation Plus game for a little bit, getting a few trophies, and being like, and then they're like, no. And if you're a trophy hunter, you know that feeling of like 2 or 3% completion, it hurts. It wounds.
Yeah.
It mocks you. I'd rather have like a 90% completion. I can never get it because the servers are dead, than 2% because I hated the game. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then other than that, like I said before, I've been working on Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm just about done with my first playthrough, so I'm hoping to wrap that up this weekend and start doing the hard grind. And then this little known game that we haven't talked about much called Far Cry 2. I started the single player on that, and I played for about 5 minutes before I got tired of it and turned it off, so I still need to get around to doing that, but it's just such a hurdle because like 60% of the single player trophies are missable. So you need to plan out everything hours in advance.
Games need to have chapter select. The fact that there's so many like AAA games that put out there that do not have chapter select or have very specific requirements for a trophy that you can lock yourself out of relatively easily is mind-boggling to me. To this day and age, I know like Resident Evil 7 has least a lot of missable games, but because it has a speedrun trophy, you can complete runs relatively quickly in a few hours. So it's like it respects your time, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, or even if it doesn't have chapter select, at least have a big pop-up as you're about to do something. It's like, warning, point of no return. Go do everything, you dingus.
Dying Light did that, and so that's where I'm currently stopped. Tyler, what are you currently working on the platinum for?
It doesn't actually have a platinum, which I'm kind of disappointed by. But my recent obsession is Don't Starve.
Yeah.
All the trophies are pretty. It's a
Oh, what kind of game is that?
I'm not really sure what genre you would put it in, but it's like a survival, like wilderness game. Like you got to collect a bunch of materials and then make stuff out of the materials, and then it's just compounding thing to build your camp, and but yeah, it's most of the trophies are pretty easy because you unlock new people by just leveling up, which is based on how many days you survive. But the last couple trophies for characters is you have to go through this thing called adventure mode, which is just like a gauntlet of different worlds which represent different like mechanics of the game. There's like a winter world, there's a one that's like just darkness, and you have to try to survive in perpetual night. So yeah, one of the guys you find
interesting,
and you have to go through 5 of them. One of them you find in one of the worlds, and the other one you get after actually beating the whole gauntlet. Yeah, and plus the world changes every time you start. So it's not like you can try to memorize where stuff is and go right to where you need to and things like that. Like you got to re-explore the entire world every time you die.
Yeah, this is a little bit like Returnal. Returnal, like via the forest.
Sounds like a roguelike.
It's really addicting though, at least for me. I mean, it's pretty hard. There's a super steep learning curve. They like tell you nothing. They just drop you in the woods and they're like, "Good luck, have fun."
Add another game to your backlog.
Maybe I'll start it.
Yeah, but
yeah. Okay.
What's one more on the pile at this point?
Basically.
There's just some, we are in such a wonderful era of gaming. There's always just such great new games coming out, AAA games, tons of like really fun indie games. I just finished up Aragami, that was a relatively smaller studio made. It's a relatively short game, but it tells its story really well, and it's just a really fun little 10 hours. That includes 2 playthroughs. But it's this game came out 4 years ago, and I never heard about it because there's just so many wonderful games out there. It just kind of flew under my radar.
And
I just finished it. I finished the DLC Nightfall. It's a solid stealth game. It has a really good core mechanic of being able to use shadow and manipulate shadows to get around, which works really well if you are an assassin. Doesn't overstay its welcome, which is good. It's good that it's short because you have to do 2 playthroughs for the platinum. And the story has some interesting twists, but it gets a little unnecessarily confusing in some key parts, mostly because it's one of those games where you're followed by this person who summons you, and you're an Aragami, you're a vengeful spirit, and she's telling you things that happened in the past, and it's a lot of locations and names and details, and it all sort of kind of gets muddled together. But the actual gameplay is a lot of fun. And it's a good stealth game that doesn't punish you for making a mistake. And you can just reload a checkpoint, or you can just kind of, move on, and it's not like where you're insta-fail if you're stealth, if you accidentally guard sees a corner of you and that triggers the file. It's free on PlayStation Now, so... Right. Yeah, exactly.
Sounds interesting. Maybe I'll add it to my list.
And I think the DLC is $1.50 right now on sale, so it is worth the price of admission.
I love me a good sale. That's why my backlog is so bad. And Joe, I know you just finished a big one.
Yeah, I finally got around to playing Resident Evil 7 because we got it as part of the Plus collection, and I said, I'll get to that eventually. And then one day I went to my dad's and he bought Resident Evil 8, and I said, well, guess I gotta play 7 now.
Yeah.
I played through that, and I had a lot of fun with it. I was a bit on the fence just because from what I saw, it was going back to the survival horror roots, and while those are fun games, they're very stressful at times. And I can confirm my first playthrough, I did have to have a friend on the phone just so I could have someone to talk to as men came out of the walls and tried to eat me.
What?
You never got to the first molded in Resident Evil 7 where you're just walking through a room and a man steps out of a wall?
Dude, you're expecting
I don't
too much
judge
from
you,
me.
Joe. I have played many a Sphere game with my husband on the couch next to me, so I have somebody to experience it with me. Mostly it's just having an audience for my screaming, but it does bring it down a little bit versus I want to be strong enough to play it in the dark by myself, but probably not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a lot of fun with that, especially with it being first person as opposed to the fixed camera of the first three and the third person of the everything between 4 and Resident Evil 3 Remake. And I really enjoyed the hardest difficulty, even though it was a pain the few times where I did something stupid and lost like 45 minutes to 2 hours of progress.
Wow.
But it was also a lot of fun going through that with the special item you got for beating the speed run, because the circular saw absolutely breaks the game. And I accidentally turned my hard difficulty run into a knife-only run, just because everything melts with the circular saw. So, like, I did one of the bosses I tried with all my shotgun shells, my enhanced ammo for the strongest handgun in the game, flamethrower. I used everything, and she barely had a dent in her. I came at her with the circular saw, and she was dead in 45 seconds.
Crazy of health bars. They're kind of asking for you to use the game-breaking weapon. We all have things to do.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So yeah, one thing I will recommend to anyone who hasn't played Resident Evil 7 yet is do the speed run before you try Madhouse, and just run with the circular saw in front of your face at all times, and you should be good. Yep.
Wow, that really is game breaking.
That sounds like Magus, which, if you've never played it, is the funniest, worst game ever. So funny. I could do an entire podcast about this game. But it's very... You basically just spend the entire game running around shooting little orbs, because it's unlimited ammo. So that's what it sounds like. I would just be running around screaming in that house, just throwing circular saw blades everywhere. And I would regret nothing.
Oh. And then, Tyler, I believe you mentioned that you finished a Splinter Cell game.
It was...
How was
I
it?
knew going into it that it was like, a stealth type game, because, I'm familiar with the franchise, but, didn't have any idea of what to expect, like, if there was something special about the way they did stealth, or, anything like that, but it was very banal. At first it was okay, but then it got extremely frustrating and very just like, boring. And it just felt a lot to me like they tried to mash up a poorly done Metal Gear with like Call of Duty. Because there is like an option to be stealthy or just aggressive, and loud and all that. But yeah, just definitely not my type of game. Plus, the story was kind of cringy. A lot of the dialogue was just so unthoughtful and like very generic, in my opinion. And just the end game like trophies, like hardest difficulty and all that were just really stupid. Plus there was a co-op trophies, which was really annoying to me because you could largely do them by yourself, like couch co-op or whatever, just with a second controller, except for some very short sequences where like you would have to have both people running through a collapsing building or something. So you couldn't do that by yourself. So I had to like have my girlfriend help me for 10 seconds. Like, can you just run straight? Because I can't do this with two controllers at the same time. So I'm like, either make it like you could solo co-op it or don't. Like, it's really dumb, especially with such a small sequence to throw in there like that. Like, that's just really pissed me off. Um,
Was there online co-op or it had to be 2-person like couch co-op?
no, you could do online co-op or split screen.
Okay.
But yeah, it worked for either one. Um, but yeah, it's
Yeah, I
just
ran into
not
that with
one.
yeah, I ran into that with Army of Two, Devil's Cartel, because one of the trophies is to finish in co-op mode, but the servers are down, so it has to be couch co-op. And I tried to have my wife help me, but the game's not easy. Like you have to be good about taking cover, and she's not a gamer, so she was just like, "I'm sorry, I tried, but I'm not trying anymore."
I played that game with my husband. It is, yeah, that is definitely not. If that's your first kind of forte into gaming, that's a harsh wake up call.
Yeah. And of course I haven't finished anything. Just keeping up with my normal spirit. So that
Just
does
keep doing a trophy a day.
well, I need to get the one trophy for today. I'm running short on time here. So we are going to move on to the trophy game. Just a reminder. So I'm going to go through a list of trophy names, and generally it's going to go from most obscure to very specific. One change that I did make for this episode is I'm going to go fast. It's going to be a lightning round. So
Here we go.
try and buzz in when you know what game it is. And I hope you guys get this first one pretty quickly because it's a short trophy list. So I only have so many trophies I can go through.
We just blurted out, or
All right. I'm sorry.
do we just blurt it out? We think we know it.
Um, let's try and buzz in. Say your name when you know.
Okay.
All right. So the first one, and starting now, endure and survive. For emergencies only. Knowing the basics. Populace. Scavenger. It was all just lying there. Let's gear up. I want to talk about it. That's all I got. Look for the light. It can't be for nothing. No
Joe,
matter what. Yes.
is that The Last of Us?
Dude, I was starting to get worried because I just had no matter what left, and nobody was chiming in. Nobody knew what was going on.
Hard. I didn't know that
The one that I
the
saw pre.
trophy names were so vague. Those would be just about anything though.
Well, there's also
Joe.
yeah, there's also one that's like Firefly and Hunter, and I was trying to avoid Firefly, and then of course there's no matter what. I think is the platinum, but it can't be for nothing. Easy, it can't be for nothing. Medium, can't be for nothing. Hard.
It can't be for nothing. Survivor Plus.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, game 2, and this one's a little bit longer, but a little less obscure. It gets kind of specific quicker. So lightning round. Ready, set, go. The Cloaked Shadow, Time Attacker, Level Master, From Rags to Riches, Where the Bells Toll, The Rabbit Hole, Member of the Tribe,
Tyler.
Pumpkin Prince. Yes.
Is it Kingdom Hearts 1? Or
Yes.
Okay.
It is Kingdom Hearts 1.
Okay. I was starting to kind of narrow that down in my head a little bit.
I was thinking Kingdom Hearts as soon as you said something about pumpkins, because I was like, oh, that's gotta be Halloween Town.
Yep.
I need to study my trophy list apparently.
You only have 200, right?
The hard thing about that is trying to figure out which Kingdom Hearts it came from. That's why it was like.
In fairness, if you said Kingdom Hearts 2, unless, Joe or Kate were like directly behind you and saying their name, I probably would have just given it to you because they don't get any more specific to each one, right?
I'm pretty sure the only more specific it gets is the Platinum, where it's Kingdom Hearts Master or Kingdom Hearts 2 Master.
Yeah, basically. But that is our show for today. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Remember to check out the Pandas with Bombs Discord for all of your trophy hunting needs. We cover PlayStation 3, Vita, PS4, PS5, if you can get it. Xbox, if anybody decides to join us with Xbox. There's nobody so far. Connect on all of your favorite social media platforms. We are Pandas with Bombs on everything. I'm your host, Gilbert. Thanks again to our co-hosts, Kate, Joe, and Tyler. Thank you to Digsy17 for our awesome logo, and thank you again to our video editor, Shakote, for providing today's video footage. If there's anything you guys want to plug?
No.
I'm on Twitch at Platinum King 2000. I try to stream once a week. I'm like 3/4 of the way through Demon Souls, so I'm going to be wrapping that up soon and then getting right into Dark Souls. I might be doing a Resident Evil 7 run while that's still fresh, just for fun.
Great. All right. Thanks again.
All right.